Good morning. I'm Mawali Davis. I am one of the partners here at the Davis Bozeman Johnson Law Firm. We come this morning, unfortunately, to announce another death at the Fulton County Jail. And even though Mr. Delmore passed away in Grady Hospital, all evidence that we have is that he left Fulton County Jail unconscious. And so we have a number of people who we would like to share, because this is not just about his life. It is about a tragedy that continues to happen, that lives remain in danger in the Fulton County Jail in ways that none of us could have possibly imagined over the last 2 to 3 years. And to that end, I have standing with us today, we have James Woodall, the Public Policy Associate at the Southern Center for Human Rights, who has really led the work in trying to bring light around what has happened at the Fulton County Jail and what is happening. And their work has been monumental in initiating and calling for a federal investigation into the Fulton County Jail. We also have Devin Franklin. He is the Movement Policy Counsel for the Southern Center for Human Rights. And so he will speak on behalf of the work that they have been doing, the work that they've been doing, not just for this family, but for other families and for every person that's incarcerated at this very moment in the Fulton County Jail. We also have Marcus Coleman, a longtime community organizer, a resident of Fulton County, as well as an advocate for inmates who have died in the Fulton County Jail. I'm accompanied by my law partner Harold Spence and Regine Bray. We also have with us attorney Etora Jones, who will be investigating whether this is a medical malpractice matter. And we also have the family of Shawndre Delmore, at least 2 of the members who have traveled here from Louisiana, Natasha Holman and Patricia Delmore. And so with that, I'd like for Attorney Devin Franklin to step up and share for a moment, and then we will proceed with Marcus Coleman immediately following Attorney Franklin.
My name is Devin Franklin. I am Movement Policy Counselor for the Southern Center for Human Rights, a nonprofit law firm that does work primarily in the areas of decriminalization of poverty, abolishment of the death penalty, and ending mass incarceration. Make no mistake about it, the death of Shawndre Delmore is the very harm that those of us at the Southern Center for Human Rights, as well as members of the Community Over Cages Coalition, warned elected officials in Atlanta City Government, on Atlanta City Council, and the Fulton Board of Commissioners of what would happen when jail space was expanded. Last summer, there was a long and arduous fight over whether or not the Fulton County Jail should be able to add jail space in order to address the humanitarian crisis of overcrowding at the Fulton County Jail. What advocates warned was that adding more jail space, more beds, did not solve the institutional issues, the cultural issues that exist within the Fulton County Sheriff's Department. To date, we have had 10 deaths in the Fulton County Jail under the leadership of Sheriff Patrick Labatt. To date, I've not yet heard a single expression of remorse for the families of those persons who have had loved ones lost, such as the family of Mr. Delmore. Every death that occurs in that facility has effectively operated as a piece of political currency in Sheriff Labatt's chase for a new multi-billion-dollar jailing facility. And what we have said to this point, unequivocally, is that until we address those systemic harms that have led to the death of so many in custody, we will continue to see these problems. The jail is in bad condition, no doubt, but the culture in that building is more corrupt. What we warned people of last year is that there are very slow indictment processes that are keeping people in custody for significantly longer times than what they deserve to be there. Shawndre was in custody for a second-degree burglary. He was unindicted for a period of 5 months. And understand that the process of indictment is not a complicated one. It takes one officer showing up to grand jury one time, testifying to the one report that he did in order for a person to be indicted. And in 5 months, the City of Atlanta police officer that arrested Shawndre did not do that. We told those persons on the Atlanta City Council and the Fulton Board of Commissioners that there were an inordinate number of people who were being held on bonds that they could not afford, and that they were only in custody because of the fact that they were too poor to purchase their way out. We were told that the persons were there because they were too dangerous, and it's just untrue. Shawndre died while having a bond of $2,500. He died because we could not get money up to get him out at that point in time. What we want to make very clear is that we need humanitarian responses to humanitarian crisis. We need a system that values people over property. We need leadership that is willing to admit when they have made a mistake and a misstep, and leadership that is willing to correct itself. One death is far too many. One death is far too many. We need to arrive at a place where we understand that it's not just a news story that's being told here. We are here and we're speaking to the cameras today, but the family is going to have to go home with the understanding they're never going to see their loved one again. And that is a reality that has become too normal, too true in this city that is hailed as the Black Mecca.
Brother Coleman.
Good morning. 10 deaths this year relating to the Fulton County Jail. The attorneys will speak in a few minutes on the condition of their young loved one once he left the jail. 10 deaths this year, but don't forget the 15 last year, making a total of 25 deaths in a little over 21 months. You know, it's so interesting that this particular facility was celebrated nationwide as being the symbol, the structure of justice, because it booked Rudy Giuliani and the former president and 17 others. I must say I'm happy, but it's bittersweet because it is at the blood loss of their family. But I'm happy to see the correct attention being put on one of the most corrupt institutions right here in the largest county of Georgia. I just want to touch on a couple things and I'm gone. I worked very closely with the attorneys of the family of LaShawn Thompson. What we feel is a human rights violation, but what we also feel is a symbol of being systemic. If LaShawn Thompson would have been taken seriously, then maybe we could have prevented the death of their loved one. But I also find it odd, Attorney Davis, that the DOJ has been investigating this jail and we still have multiple deaths, including their loved one, that happened even on the DOJ's watch. I'm glad to hear that people are echoing that Patrick Labatt must be held accountable. But we also have to hold a couple of others accountable. Recently, the Fulton County Board of Commissioners extended the contract for the medical provider, the medical service provider of this jail, just recently, in the midst of all of this death and carnage before your loved one. I think the medical service provider is key as it relates to this gentleman, again, that the attorneys will discuss. Two, this family is getting ready to go down the journey of LaShawn Thompson. What's interesting to me is the medical examiner has not really been put under a microscope. We were thankful to Colin Kaepernick, who did an independent autopsy. In the independent autopsy compared to the Fulton County medical examiner's autopsy in LaShawn Thompson, and again, this is systemic, and this family is going through this route, it was a detailed, deficient, and bland autopsy out of the medical examiner's office. So we feel that the Fulton County Board of Commissioners needs to also look at who they have as a medical examiner. And in closing, we have to learn to have as much energy, as much thoughtfulness, and as much respect for those that we consider the least of these that we have with political figures. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to bring forward in our firm, we litigate cases in a number of different areas. We litigate in the area of civil rights, but we also litigate medical malpractice cases. And so we're unclear at this stage in the investigation whether this is medical malpractice, whether it is a violation of civil rights, or all of the above. And based on everything that has been shared thus far by Attorney Franklin, by Marcus Coleman, again, as you can imagine, we are doing a complete and thorough investigation into all aspects of the Fulton County Jail and the death of Shawndre Delmore. So with that, I'd like to bring up Attorney Ed Jones, who is with our firm, to just share briefly, and he'll be followed by our law partner, Harold Spence.
Good morning. We will, as Attorney Davis said, be looking into aspects of potential medical malpractice in this case. The information that we have thus far indicates that Mr. Delmore was unresponsive for a good period of time prior to the arrival of the emergency medical services. He was found on the floor at the jail unresponsive, and there are questions that we will be looking into as to the preparedness of the medical providers there at the jail, especially as it indicates that attempts to revive him were delayed until emergency medical services were present. There were deficient equipment available there to revive Mr. Delmore, so we have a number of questions that we will be looking into to determine the preparedness of the medical services there at the jail, and in addition to what was done after he was taken to the hospital. So we will provide that information as it becomes available to us.
Thank you. Attorney Spence.
Good morning. My name is Harold Spence, and I head the Complex Litigation Division of the Davis Bozeman Law Firm that includes the civil rights arm of our firm. As Attorney Ed Jones stated, we're undertaking a thorough investigation to find out what happened. Right now, we don't know whether there are any civil rights implications to Mr. Delmore's death. It would not be a surprise, however, if there were civil rights implications. Even the Attorney General of the United States of America has criticized the Fulton County Jail. And as we know, there is an investigation going on based on the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Civil Rights of Institutionalized Persons Act. That investigation is being conducted by the Department of Justice. We'll conduct our own independent investigation into Mr. Delmore's death, and we assure you that we'll keep you posted of our findings.
We would like to do a couple of things. We want you all to see him as the smiling, happy, outgoing young man that this family knew and loved deeply, that his twin sister loved deeply, that his grandmother, who is here, loved deeply, and that his mother, who is here, loved deeply. We want you to put a face, not a number, on this young man who was 24 years old when they said he died of cardiac arrest. Our work is different. Sometimes we have these kind of memorized, repeated narratives. What we're demanding is something very different from the Fulton County Jail, the Fulton County Sheriff. We need complete transparency, and we're going to outline in a letter that we send to Sheriff Labatt today what that looks like for us. We need immediate access to every inmate who was near and or around Mr. Delmore when he went unconscious. We need all video footage immediately. What has been historically done is that, well, we have to wait until after our investigation is done. We cannot wait any longer. We cannot wait until after their investigation is done for us to have access to the very things that we need to conduct our investigation. It is so critical at the Fulton County Jail right now. We have to depart from old ways. We have to. It's a must. So what we're going to be outlining is a release of the footage, of his medical records, of his in custody records, everything related to him and his incarceration. And that we will submit by close of business today, and we will begin in the coming weeks. We currently represent 4 other inmates that we have not shared information about, but in the coming weeks we will also bring forward those families so that you can hear from them directly, because we have been stonewalled. The Fulton County's Attorney's Office has not released any investigation after over a year in some of these cases. And so now we have come to this point that we have to move in an entirely different direction, and we expect a different result. And so this is an important, critical moment for the county commissioners. They have an opportunity to demand the release and complete transparency and accountability. And if they fail to do that, then they're a part of the system that will allow for more deaths. What we know and understand is that the way this system works is unless there's accountability, there will be a continuation of death. And that's what we've seen. We've heard great talks and speeches, but what we haven't seen is the transparency and the action that this community deserves and that these families deserve. We should be very clear. This young man was not convicted of a crime. He was not. He was simply being held. He was not convicted. And even if he were convicted, he would not have been convicted to a death sentence. And what we see happening in Fulton County is just by entering the jail, some of our inmates are literally being convicted of a death and given a death sentence because of entering into this space. I want you all to hear briefly. They will not be able to take any questions, but I want you all to hear briefly from his mother and grandmother. Come on up. This is Miss Natasha Holloman, and this is Miss Patricia Delmore. You could just tell them just a little bit about Shawndre.
My son was so loving, he wouldn't harm anybody. He didn't deserve to die like this. He had his whole life ahead of him. I can't even understand getting a phone call saying he's in ICU. I wasn't expecting to see my son in the condition that he was in when I came out here. I thought I would be able to take my son with me back home, but that didn't happen. And I want answers. I want to know what happened to my son. I want to know why he had to die.
My grandson was a loving, young, compassionate, I call him a kid, but he was very loving. He had a great smile, and he would do anything for anyone. And it's unfortunate that this has happened to him, and we would like to know why.
Thank you. We will also add that mysteriously, surprisingly, there was a compassionate release bond issued that was essentially a signature bond after he went to the ICU at Grady Hospital. And we're attorneys, so we try not to speculate. But what we're clear about is that his release, even though he was unconscious, his release, even though he was on life support, his release, even though he could not speak or communicate to his family, possibly was an attempt to say that he did not die in the Fulton County Jail. Well, we know better than that. We know that what brought him to Grady Hospital, whatever happened to him in the Fulton County Jail. And if there's anyone that is liable for what happened to him, it will be at the Fulton County Jail, regardless of his release. With that, we will take any questions that you have.
Attorney Davis, it sounds like you alluded to a possible cover-up in the jail. Have you seen these type of bonds being given in situations like this?
No, in fact, we've had cases, very sad cases, where individuals were in custody, and because they were in custody, their family members could not visit them at the hospital. And so this is, for us, for lack of a better term, a new one. And so we'll see what, again, we hope that the Department of Justice is watching. We hope that they were made aware and this was reported to them, and that this was not an effort to subvert this investigation and to make it appear as though he is not another in custody death. That's our hope. But we know that hope is not a plan.
Attorney Davis, you mentioned the bonds. He was granted a $5,000 bond in April, and it took a couple of months for another bond to be reduced. Then have you talked to the lawyers that were appointed to him?
We have not spoken with any of his public defenders that were appointed to him. We have not. Again, this is a system that the public defenders are fighting to try to free people every day over at the jail. And everyone knows, at this point, it would feel as though a common sense approach would be to look at every person who is in the jail that has a bond at a certain amount, that has a certain charge to be considered for signature bonds. They should not have to wait until they're taken out on a stretcher to receive a signature bond.
Are you aware of any discussions that Mr. Delmore had either with his family or his attorneys indicating any problems getting treatment for any type of medical condition or any other problems that he may have had at the jail?
We're not aware of any conversations. What the family has reiterated repeatedly was that he was healthy 24-year-old. They have no history of heart conditions that would have them believe that a cardiac arrest was something that they should be concerned about for a healthy 24-year-old. So again, that makes Ed Jones from the medical malpractice wonder what is going on in there. There have been, again, information that we received through investigation that there are substances that are in the jail that is making people very, very sick. And they have not addressed that issue as of yet. Clearly, if in fact that was the result of Mr. Delmore's passing.
So are these substances that were coming out from the jail itself, or were these substances shared between inmates? Can you clarify?
What our understanding is that there are substances that are in the jail, contraband that should not be in the jail, that is being shared, is being moved around, and that they have been put on notice. They being the Fulton County Jail administration, they're on notice, right? And Attorney Spence can talk more about the standard. If you know that there is a dangerous condition in a jail and you've been put on notice, then you have a responsibility to address that, whether that is inmate on inmate violence or whether that is contraband that could result in death. That's a matter for the administration to have to deal with. And again, our investigation, we're going to follow it to wherever it leads us, but we're concerned that that is a contributing factor in his passing.
You're not conducting an independent autopsy?
As of right now, we have not conducted an independent autopsy. The family has just, as of yesterday, had an opportunity to see him at the funeral home, and are still processing what their next steps will be as it relates to a second autopsy.
Attorney Davis, here, you brought up the fact of the condition of his body.
Make sure you have a mask.
Elaborate on that.
Our investigator right now is at the funeral home photographing and inspecting the body for any other injuries. The family was able to see him yesterday. We wanted to give them the opportunity to do that privately, and so now we are going through our process to see if there's any basis for us to consider a second autopsy, if there was any other foul play.
What you guys have said today and laid out sounds like the emergency community. Do you think the commissioners and the public at large are taking this as seriously as they should?
There's no way they could be taking it as seriously as they should, because the jail is still opening and functioning the way that it is. It has to be immediately. Someone has to come in and take control, and we have to clear out the people that are there. I mean, this is a death trap. That's where we are right now. And you know what happened over the last several months and what has been disclosed. This is supposed to be America. This is supposed to be where people are able to, they are innocent until proven guilty. And that no matter what, they should be able to live in humane conditions, even when accused of a crime.
Now, the cases that you've mentioned, bond was not bond either was granted and wasn't afforded, or they weren't indicted. So they were there just kind of waiting. Do you put any blame in the district attorney's office for that process not happening fast enough to get the people through the system to be where they need to be and either indicted or not?
For me, again, we're a different kind of law firm. As far as we're concerned, this whole system is guilty as hell.
Yes, sir.
The whole system. The whole entire system is guilty as hell of this death and every other death. The way policing is done in African American communities, the way black bodies are housed, the way we go through this process, we see it time and time again. In Atlanta, the Black Mecca is, again, not immune to what we see happening across the country. And so every part of this system is responsible, including every citizen that isn't down at the Fulton County Commission meetings protesting and saying, let them out, free them all. That's the point that we're at right now. If you can't take care of people who are accused and they have to die in your custody, then free them all. And then once that begins, when that becomes the rallying cry, then we'll begin to see some adjustments made where those who we really believe may need to remain in custody, they'll find out a way to do that more humanely. Right now, there isn't.
A couple quick informational questions here. I know your investigation is just starting, but have you found anything in your investigation that contradicts what the jail has said about person's death?
Not as of yet. Again, what they've said has been limited, and what we want is complete access. They should on Monday or tomorrow, they should say, come down, here are all the people, all the inmates who were in the vicinity, here are the deputies who were supposed to be on this block, here's where, it should open it up.
So I guess how much do we not know right now?
There's a lot that we still have to find out. We have not had an opportunity to interview anyone. None of that has been disclosed to us, and we need that information and we need that access. What we're demanding is access, unfettered, in a way that is very uncommon in these jail cases, because everything is, again, part of it is that the system relies on us to forget about people. They rely on us to see a mugshot and just criminalize them and say, oh, they're just a criminal. What they are, they're human beings. They're a grandson, they're a son, they're a brother, and their lives matter, right? And so our work is to continue to humanize these numbers that continue to rise in the Fulton County Jail.
And you believe this 24-year-old has suddenly died of cardiac arrest? At the end of the day, do you believe?
We do not believe that this 24. We do not believe that this is a natural death. No, we do not.
Attorney Davis, cardiac arrest pretty much just simply means your heart stops. Right?
Correct.
So, what is the actual causation? Because everybody who ultimately dies, heart stops. So it's very broad.
Very broad. We have not been given any information, any details. We have not.
So just to clarify, do you have any information that it was a substance that somehow got in, or is that just something you're going to pursue?
That's something that we're pursuing. We don't have any evidence. And again, it's our position that would be readily available if we were provided access to the videos, access to be able to interview inmates as well as deputies. That's where we are. Complete transparency, Fulton County commissioners should have what we see at the federal level all the time, where there's a tragedy. They should have a hearing and bring in each one of the deputies that were assigned that day, and they should open it up right there in Fulton County Commissioner, and we should be able to question them, and the world should be able to see what is happening there and what happened on this particular day. We see that happening at the federal level, where there are hearings, public hearings, and people are questioned. What was your role? What did you do? What did you fail to do? What did you observe? Under oath. It's that time. It's that time.
How long after the Fulton County Sheriff's Office alleges that he was found unresponsive did they notify the family? How long?
The family did not find out until the next day that he was in the at Grady Hospital. They immediately flew here from Louisiana, and when they got here, they found him in the Grady Hospital unresponsive, on life support, and they were informed that there was no brain activity. And so, again, while he was pronounced dead in Grady Hospital, we don't know whether he was even really alive when he left the Fulton County Jail.
You mentioned that you are representing 4 other inmate families. Are those families of deceased inmates?
Yes, we have deceased inmates, and we will be sharing them in the coming days.
From this year or from years past?
Within the last 18 months.
You said there's 4.
Yes.
Right? In addition to this, so that's a total?
No, a total of 4.
Including this?
Including this one.
And can we get the spellings of the families?
Yes, Natasha, the mom is Natasha Holloman, Natasha, Holloman, Holoman, 1 L. And grandma's Patricia Delmore, Patricia, Delmore, Delmore.
Can we also get the attorneys that spoke, their names and the spellings of the names?
Attorney Harold Spence, Harold, Spence, Spence. Attorney Ed Jones, Jones. And then you all, and again, we thank you all. It's an important role, we believe, for the public, for the media to play in amplifying this so that people can understand. It could be your loved one next, and we really have to understand. A stop because you didn't pay a ticket could result in you having an FTA and having to go over to Fulton County Jail. And if any of my family were to have to go to Fulton County Jail, I would literally have to camp out in the lobby until they were released. That's how deeply concerned we are about the jeopardy and the life inside the jail at this moment.
So your next step is to send a letter today demanding full access to any inmates, deputies, and video that pertains to this death? Correct.
And we would urge them to do the same for every family, even families we don't represent.
Have you communicated with the jail thus far, and if so, what's been their response?
I have had some communication, and We told him it's coming, this letter. And so that's where we are. We're coming.
And one more clarification question. Are you all not from Atlanta, right?
They live in Louisiana. They had to they traveled here. Right. Okay. Thank you all very much. We appreciate your time.